Her A1C was 8.4. She'd been on metformin for 11 years. 11. And every 3 months, same story, same disappointing number, same look on her doctor's face, same adjustment to her dosage. Then she did something her doctor never suggested, never even mentioned. She added one vegetable. One. Every morning for 90 days straight. When she walked back into that office, her doctor pulled up the lab results, went quiet for about 10 seconds, and said, and I'm quoting her now, "This doesn't make sense." Her A1C had dropped to 6.1. Now look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you okra is some kind of miracle cure. It's not. Nothing is. But what I am going to tell you, what the clinical research now confirms across multiple randomized controlled trials, is that this vegetable does something inside your body that most people, including most doctors, have never had explained to them. It works through 7 distinct mechanisms. 7. And I've ranked them from the least powerful to the most powerful, because when you get to number 1, that's when you'll understand why pharmaceutical companies have zero interest in funding research on a vegetable that costs less than $2 at Walmart. Drop a comment saying, "I deserve the truth," if you believe healthcare information should be free and accessible to everyone. And share this video with someone you love who's managing their blood sugar. Because what I'm about to show you in the next 40 minutes could change how they think about this condition. Forever. This is Senior Health Blog, and the truth starts now. Before I rank anything, you need to understand what okra actually is at the molecular level. Because this isn't just a vegetable, it's a pharmacy. And I mean that literally. Okra, scientific name Abelmoschus esculentus, belongs to the Malvaceae family, same family as hibiscus. It's been cultivated for over 4,000 years. Originally in the regions around Ethiopia and Sudan. Ancient Egyptians were growing it as far back as 1216 AD. But here's what matters to you. When you slice open an okra pod, that sticky, slimy substance that comes out, the stuff most people hate, the stuff that makes you go, "Ugh, why is it so gooey?" That is the medicine. I know. It doesn't look like medicine. It doesn't taste like medicine. It looks like something you'd wipe off your cutting board. But that mucilage, and I know it's not a pretty word, is a complex polysaccharide matrix. It contains galacturonic acid, galactose, rhamnose, and arabinose. These aren't just fiber. They're bioactive compounds that physically interact with the lining of your small intestine. And here's something that blew my mind when I first came across it in the research. Ancient Egyptians weren't just eating okra as food. They were using it medicinally. Healers in traditional medicine systems across West Africa, South Asia, and the Middle East have used okra preparations to treat what we would now classify as diabetes symptoms for centuries. Long before anyone had a glucose meter, long before metformin existed. They observed that people who ate okra regularly had fewer of the symptoms we associate with uncontrolled blood sugar. The frequent urination, the thirst, the fatigue. They didn't know why it worked, they just knew it worked. Now we know why. And that's just the mucilage. The seeds inside? They contain flavonoids, specifically isoquercetin and quercetin 3-O-gentiobioside, compounds that have been shown in laboratory studies to directly inhibit the enzymes that break carbohydrates into sugar. So you've got 2 systems working at once. The outside of the pod slows absorption, the inside of the pod blocks the enzymes that create the sugar in the first place. No single diabetes medication does both. And here's what really struck me when I started digging into this research. Okra has been used medicinally for thousands of years. In Turkey, roasted okra seed infusion has been a traditional diabetes remedy for generations. In India, traditional Ayurvedic practitioners have used it. In West Africa and the Caribbean, it's a dietary staple that's been associated with lower diabetes rates for as long as anyone can remember. But it took until the last 5 to 10 years for Western clinical science to finally run the randomized controlled trials that prove what traditional medicine already knew. And now that the data is here, published in PubMed, peer-reviewed, replicated across multiple countries, the question isn't whether it works. The question is why more doctors don't know about it. Let me show you exactly how this plays out, ranked from the least powerful mechanism to the most powerful. And I promise you, number 1 is going to change how you look at that produce aisle. Number 7, the Antioxidant Shield. Now, this might seem basic. Every health video talks about antioxidants. I get it. But here's why it matters specifically for people managing blood sugar after 70. When your blood sugar runs high, even moderately high, it creates something called oxidative stress. Free radicals attack the walls of your blood vessels. They damage the tiny capillaries in your kidneys, your eyes, the nerves in your feet. That numbness? Those dry cracks on your feet? That's not just aging. That's oxidative damage driven by glucose. Here's what most people don't realize. Okra contains not 1, not 2, but multiple classes of antioxidants working together. Quercetin, catechins, epigallocatechins, myricetin. These aren't the antioxidants you find in a generic multivitamin. These are targeted compounds that specifically reduce the type of oxidative damage high blood sugar causes. A review published in Food Production, Processing, and Nutrition in 2025 confirmed that okra's polyphenolic compounds suppress inflammatory cytokines, specifically tumor necrosis factor alpha, and reduce the oxidative stress markers that drive diabetic complications. And here's the part that really got to me when I was reviewing this research. The quercetin glycosides in okra don't just neutralize free radicals floating around in your blood. They actually protect the mitochondria inside your kidney cells. A study on kidney mitochondrial function found that isoquercitrin and quercetin from plant sources, both present in okra, reduce hydrogen peroxide generation within the mitochondria themselves. That's not mopping up the mess. That's stopping the mess from being made in the first place. Think of it this way. Your blood sugar is the fire. Antioxidants don't put out the fire, but they protect the walls from burning down while you're working on the fire itself. And okra's antioxidants? They're not standing outside with a garden hose. They're inside the walls, reinforcing the structure. And for seniors who've been dealing with elevated glucose for 10, 15, 20 years, that accumulated oxidative damage is real. I was never told about this. That's a phrase I see in the comments constantly, and it frustrates me. Because this information exists, it's published, it's in the journals. It's just, nobody sits down and explains it. But mechanism number 7 is just the foundation. Number 6 is where the practical impact starts showing up on your lab work. Number 6, the cholesterol and triglyceride reset. Now, if you're watching this, chances are you're not just managing blood sugar, you're also dealing with cholesterol, maybe triglycerides, maybe both. And your doctor probably put you on a statin alongside your metformin. Sound familiar? Here's what the research shows. A 2025 meta-analysis, and this was published in Phytotherapy Research, pooled data from 6 randomized controlled trials on okra supplementation in type 2 diabetic patients. They found that okra significantly reduced fasting blood glucose. But here's what surprised even the researchers. It also dropped triglycerides and total cholesterol. The mechanism is actually pretty elegant. The soluble fiber in okra binds to bile acids in your gut. Your body uses cholesterol to make bile acids. So when okra traps those bile acids and pulls them out of your system, your liver has to pull cholesterol from your blood to make more. It's like your body's own internal recycling system. And okra turns up the speed on that conveyor belt. Now, I want to be real with you about something, because I see this in the comments all the time. People say, I'm doing everything right, but I'm still declining. And that phrase, man, it hits hard every time I read it. Because often what's happening is, you're fighting the blood sugar battle on one front, but the triglycerides, the cholesterol, those are flanking you on the other side. And nobody told you they were connected. Here's the part your cardiologist probably hasn't connected. High triglycerides and high blood sugar are not separate problems. They're the same problem. They both stem from insulin resistance. When your cells can't use glucose properly, your liver converts the excess into triglycerides. So your liver is basically saying, I can't burn this fuel, I'll store it as fat instead. Fix the insulin sensitivity, and you start fixing both numbers at once. And here's what frustrates me about how modern medicine works. You go to your endocrinologist for blood sugar. You go to your cardiologist for cholesterol. They give you separate pills, separate copays, for separate problems that come from the same root cause. And neither one mentions a $2 vegetable that addresses both simultaneously. And that's exactly what okra appears to do. Now, everything I've just explained covers what happens during the day. But there's a whole other side to blood sugar management. What happens while you sleep? That's actually something I wrote a full guide about. It's called the Midnight Insulin Trap. I'll leave the link in the description. But right now, let's keep going because number 5 is where things get really interesting. Number 5, natural GLP-1 stimulation. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it should. GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1, is the exact same hormone that drugs like Ozempic and Mounjaro are designed to mimic. Those drugs? They cost anywhere from $800 to $1,300 a month, without insurance. Okra stimulates GLP-1 production naturally. Let me explain how this works because it's actually brilliant when you understand the biology. When you eat okra, the soluble fiber creates a viscous gel in your intestinal tract. This gel does something unexpected. It slows the movement of food through your gut. Normally, glucose from your meal gets absorbed quickly in the upper part of your small intestine. But when okra's mucilage is present, that glucose gets pushed further down, deeper into the intestinal tract. Why does that matter? Because the cells that produce GLP-1, they're called L cells, are concentrated in the lower part of your small intestine and your colon. When nutrients reach those L cells, they release GLP-1 into your bloodstream. And GLP-1 does 3 things. It tells your pancreas to produce more insulin. It tells your liver to stop dumping glucose. And it slows gastric emptying, which means you feel full longer. This is the same mechanism that people are paying over $1,000 a month for. And it's happening inside a vegetable pod that costs about $1.50 for a whole bag. Now, I want to be very clear here. I'm not saying okra replaces Ozempic. The drug produces a much stronger, more sustained GLP-1 response. But the pathway? The biological pathway is the same. And for someone who's pre-diabetic or early type 2 or looking to support what their medication is already doing, this is significant. A 2025 systematic review published in the International Journal of Food Sciences and Nutrition analyzed 8 clinical studies involving 521 participants. They confirmed that okra consumption, compared to placebo, produced meaningful improvements in fasting blood glucose. The proposed mechanism? Exactly what I just described. Increased chyme viscosity, stimulating GLP-1 release. And if you're living with type 1, I see you. Most of what I'm covering today applies to type 2 and prediabetes specifically, but the antioxidant protection and the cholesterol benefits, those are relevant regardless of type. I'm working on content specifically for type 1 down the road. Number 4, the enzyme blockade. This is where okra starts behaving less like a vegetable and more like a prescription medication. And I don't say that lightly. There's a class of diabetes drugs called Alpha-Glucosidase inhibitors. The most well-known one is acarbose, brand name Precose. What does acarbose do? It blocks the enzyme alpha-glucosidase in your small intestine. This enzyme is responsible for breaking down complex carbohydrates into simple glucose. Block the enzyme, slow the glucose release, lower the blood sugar spike after meals. Okra does the same thing. A study published in Natural Product Communications, researchers at Chulalongkorn University in Thailand identified specific compounds in okra seeds. They found 2 major flavanol glucosides, isoquercitrin and quercetin 3-O-beta-glucopyranosyl glucoside. These compounds selectively inhibited two critical digestive enzymes, maltase and sucrase. And isoquercitrin? It was 6 to 10 times more potent than the related diglucoside. Stop. Did you catch that? 6 to 10 times more potent. Inside a seed that most people throw away. But it doesn't stop there. In addition to alpha-glucosidase inhibition, okra's mucilage also inhibits alpha-amylase. That's a different enzyme, one that works even earlier in the digestive process, breaking down starch before it even reaches the glucosidase enzymes. So you've got a 1-2 punch. Alpha-amylase inhibition upstream, alpha-glucosidase inhibition downstream. Both happening simultaneously, from the same vegetable. A comprehensive review published in Phytotherapy Research in 2020 confirmed that okra products decrease blood glucose through both soluble fibers and inhibition of these digestive enzymes. This is the mechanism that should be in every endocrinology textbook. And it's not. And you have to ask yourself why. Now, let me give you an analogy that makes this click. Imagine you're at a toll booth. Normally, 100 cars rush through in 10 minutes. That's what happens when you eat carbohydrates. Glucose floods through your intestinal wall into your bloodstream. Your pancreas panics. Insulin spikes. But what if you closed half the toll booth lanes? Now those 100 cars still get through, but it takes 30 minutes instead of 10. No traffic jam, no pileup. That's what alpha-glucosidase inhibition does. It closes the lanes. The glucose still gets absorbed. You still get the energy from your food, but it arrives gradually, manageable. Your pancreas can handle a steady trickle. It can't handle a flood. And the crazy part? Acarbose, the prescription drug that does this, costs about $200 a month, and it comes with side effects: gas, bloating, diarrhea, because it's a powerful, concentrated enzyme block. Okra's compounds provide a gentler, more moderate version of the same blockade. Lower intensity, but zero side effects at normal dietary doses. And you're getting it from food, from actual food. Here's something else I want you to think about. You know how your doctor tells you to eat slowly? Chew your food? That's partly because slower eating gives your body time to process glucose gradually. Well, okra does that for you, at the molecular level. Even if you eat at normal speed, the okra is slowing down the carbohydrate breakdown inside your gut. It's like having a built-in speed governor on your glucose absorption, and it starts working with the very first meal you include it in. Number 3. The physical glucose trap. Okay, we've talked about enzyme inhibition. We've talked about GLP-1. But mechanism number 3 it's almost mechanical. It's physical. And it's the one that makes researchers go quiet. Remember that slimy mucilage I mentioned at the beginning? The stuff everyone hates about okra? That gel forms a literal barrier inside your intestinal lumen, a physical wall between the glucose in your food and the absorptive surface of your intestinal lining. This isn't chemistry, this is physics. The mucilage increases the viscosity of the chyme. That's the partially digested food moving through your gut. When viscosity goes up, glucose diffusion goes down. The sugar molecules physically cannot reach the intestinal wall as quickly. They're trapped in a gel matrix. A study published in ISRN Pharmaceutics confirmed this directly. Researchers found that the water-soluble fraction of okra significantly reduced glucose absorption in the gastrointestinal tract. Not through a drug interaction, not through a chemical reaction, through physical entrapment. It's the same principle that guar gum uses, same principle as psyllium husk. But okra's mucilage is unique because it contains a specific polysaccharide called rhamnogalacturonin, a type of pectin that creates an unusually viscous barrier. More viscous than most plant fibers, more sustained than most soluble fiber supplements. And here's what makes this so powerful for seniors specifically. After 70, your digestive system is already slower. Your enzyme production is lower. Your intestinal wall is thinner. So when you add okra's mucilage to that equation, you're creating a controlled, gradual glucose release instead of a sharp spike. That spike, that post-meal spike, is what drives the damage. Every single time your blood sugar shoots above 180 after a meal, that glucose is actively damaging the endothelial lining of your blood vessels. The nerve damage, the vessel damage, the kidney damage. It's not caused by your average blood sugar, it's caused by the peaks, the spikes. Flatten the spike, and you protect the organs. And that's exactly what this mechanism does. Every meal, every day, quietly, without a prescription. And look, I know a lot of you watching this are on metformin. Some of you have been on it for 10, 15, even 20 years. I'm not going to tell you to stop taking it. That's between you and your doctor. But what I am going to show you is what happens when you add Okra alongside your current protocol. Because the research on this, your doctor may not have time to pull up that study, but I did. And that right there, that overnight piece, the gap between what happens during the day and what happens while you sleep, that's exactly why I created the Midnight Insulin Trap. It covers what actually happens to your blood sugar and blood pressure after your head hits the pillow, and how to build a nighttime system that works with your body instead of against it. Link is in the description. But let me finish showing you the top 2 mechanisms, because number 2 is where everything shifts. Number 2, kidney protection. Now, I almost put this at number 1, because for seniors over 70 who've been managing diabetes for a decade or more, kidney damage is the silent killer nobody talks about until it's too late. Diabetic nephropathy, kidney disease caused by diabetes, affects nearly 1 in 3 diabetics. 1 in 3. And by the time you notice symptoms, by the time your doctor says your kidney function is declining, significant damage has already occurred. Here's what Okra does that almost no other food-based intervention does. Isoquercitrin. Remember that compound from the okra seeds? A 2024 study published in Biochemical and Biophysical Research Communications found that isoquercitrin protects kidney cells through a very specific pathway. It inhibits something called SGLT2, sodium glucose cotransporter 2. Now, if SGLT2 sounds familiar, it should, because there's an entire class of diabetes drugs built around this mechanism. Jardiance, Farxiga, Invokana. They're called SGLT2 inhibitors. They block glucose reabsorption in the kidneys, which lowers blood sugar and protects kidney function. These drugs cost $300 to $600 a month, and the compound that does something remarkably similar is sitting inside the seeds of a vegetable you can get for $1.99 at any grocery store in America. Now hold on. I need to slow down here because this is important. I'm not saying Okra is an SGLT2 inhibitor in the way Jardiance is. The drug is precisely engineered, standardized dosing, FDA approved. I respect that. But the biological mechanism, the pathway through which it protects the kidney, overlaps in a way that should be generating research funding and clinical trials. And it's not. And you gotta ask, why? When a compound found in a common vegetable shows kidney protective effects through the same pathway as a $600 a month drug, why isn't that the lead story on every medical news site? The researchers found that isoquercitrin suppressed the expression of SGLT2 in kidney cells exposed to high glucose conditions. It reduced glucose uptake. It protected the cells from sugar-induced damage. The study concluded that isoquercitrin exhibits hypoglycemic and renal protective effects by inhibiting the SGLT2 pathway. Additionally, a separate study, a polysaccharide extracted from okra, was tested on diabetic mice with kidney damage. After 8 weeks of treatment, the okra polysaccharide significantly decreased markers of kidney injury. Creatinine dropped. Urea nitrogen dropped. Protein in the urine dropped. The researchers actually observed reversal of the structural damage to the kidney under microscope. For anyone watching this who's been told their kidney function is declining, for anyone whose doctor mentioned stage 2 or stage 3 kidney disease alongside their diabetes diagnosis, this research should be front-page news. and it's not.
15 of your comments have mentioned kidney concerns. I hear you. And this is why I brought it up. Now, before I reveal mechanism number 1, and trust me, you're gonna want to hear this, I have to stop. Because there's something critical. Something most videos about okra will never tell you. There are specific situations where okra can actually cancel the benefit of what you're already doing. And if you skip this part, you could make a mistake that costs you months of progress. Mistake number 1. Do not eat okra at the same time you take metformin. This is probably the most important thing in this entire video. A study published in ISRN Pharmaceutics, the same journal I cited earlier, found that the water-soluble fraction of okra significantly reduced the absorption of metformin in the gastrointestinal tract. The mucilage that traps glucose? It also traps your medication. The soluble fiber physically entraps metformin molecules in the gut, preventing them from entering your bloodstream. Researchers observed that blood glucose levels in rats taking metformin with okra remained dramatically higher than rats taking metformin alone. The okra canceled the drug's effect. The fix is simple. Separate them by at least 2 to 3 hours. Take your metformin on its schedule. Eat your okra at a different meal. Morning okra, afternoon metformin. Or the reverse, just never together. Mistake number 2. Do not eat raw okra if you have a history of kidney stones. Okra contains calcium oxalate. If you're prone to kidney stones, and many people with type 2 diabetes have acidic urine which increases stone risk, raw okra in large quantities can contribute to stone formation. Cooking okra reduces the oxalate content significantly, so cook it. Don't juice massive quantities of raw pods. Mistake number 3. Do not assume more is better. Clinical trials showing benefits used specific doses, typically 1,000 to 3,000 milligrams of okra powder daily, or about 4 to 6 fresh pods. Going beyond that doesn't improve results. It just increases the likelihood of digestive issues, gas, bloating, cramping, especially from the fructans in okra. Start with 2 pods daily and work up to 4 over 2 weeks. Mistake number 4. Do not rely on okra water alone. I know the internet is full of okra water recipes. Soak pods overnight, drink the water in the morning. Here's the problem. The mucilage and polysaccharides partially dissolve into the water, but the seeds, where the isoquercitrin and quercetin compounds live, stay in the pod. You're getting maybe 30 to 40% of the benefit. Eat the whole pod. Cook it. That's how every clinical trial administered it. Number 1. The insulin sensitivity reset. This is the mechanism that makes everything else work better. And it's the reason that woman's A1C dropped from 8.4 to 6.1. Here's the thing about type 2 diabetes that most explanations get wrong. The problem isn't sugar. The problem is that your cells stopped listening to insulin. Insulin is knocking on the door, and the cells won't answer. That's insulin resistance. And it's the core defect in type 2 diabetes. Every mechanism I've shown you today, the antioxidant shield, the cholesterol reset, the GLP-1 stimulation, the enzyme blockade, the glucose trap, the kidney protection. They all manage the symptoms. They reduce glucose, they slow absorption, they protect organs. But mechanism number 1 addresses the actual problem. A 2025 meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials published in Phytotherapy Research confirmed that okra supplementation significantly reduced fasting blood glucose by an average of 21.7 milligrams per deciliter and reduced HbA1c by 0.42%. Now, 0.42% might not sound like much, but let me put that in perspective. In clinical medicine, a reduction of 0.3% or more in A1C is considered clinically significant. That's the threshold where complication risk measurably decreases. Every 0.1% reduction in A1C reduces the risk of microvascular complications, that's your eyes, your kidneys, your nerves, by roughly 10%. So a 0.42 reduction? That's meaningful. That's not a rounding error. That's a real shift in your risk profile.
And a separate meta-analysis, published in the International Journal of Food Sciences and Nutrition in 2024, analyzing 8 studies with 521 participants, found an even larger effect. Fasting blood glucose dropped by an average of 32.56 milligrams per deciliter, and HbA1c dropped by 0.48%.
Now, I gotta be honest with you here. Some individual studies showed smaller effects. One study, using okra mixed into yogurt, didn't see significant changes. So this isn't magic. The preparation matters, the dose matters, the duration matters. But when you pool all the evidence together, multiple research teams, different countries, different patient populations, the direction is consistent. Blood sugar goes down, A1C improves, and the more you dig into why it works, the more it makes sense. The proposed mechanism involves multiple pathways working together. Okra's polyphenolic compounds, particularly the quercetin glycosides, modulate peroxisome proliferator activated receptors. They enhance the expression of GLUT4 glucose transporters on cell surfaces, and they suppress the inflammatory cascade driven by NF-kappa B that damages insulin receptor signaling. In plain English, okra helps your cells answer when insulin knocks. Not by forcing them, not by flooding the system with more insulin, but by repairing the signaling pathway that was damaged by years of high glucose and chronic inflammation. Let me give you an analogy that I think makes this click. Imagine your cell is a house, and insulin is the mailman trying to deliver a package. The package is glucose, energy your cell needs. In a healthy person, the doorbell rings, the door opens, package delivered. In insulin resistance, the doorbell is broken. The mailman keeps ringing, nobody answers. So your body sends more mailmen, more insulin, until your pancreas is exhausted from producing mailmen that nobody lets in. What okra does, through its quercetin glycosides and polyphenolic compounds, is it fixes the doorbell. It repairs the receptor. It doesn't send more mailmen. It makes the ones you already have effective again. And the 2023 clinical trial, the double-blind, placebo-controlled study published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology. This one really stuck with me. They gave type 2 diabetic patients 1,000 milligrams of okra 3 times daily for 3 months. Not only did fasting blood glucose drop, not only did A1C improve, they also measured C-reactive protein. That's an inflammation marker. And it went down too. No liver side effects, no kidney side effects, no blood pressure changes, no adverse events. 3 months. A vegetable extract, multiple metabolic improvements, and 0 harm. When's the last time a pharmaceutical company could say all of that about one of their drugs? That's why the results take time. You don't see this in 3 days. You see it in 60, 90 days. Because you're not masking a symptom. You're rebuilding a system. And that is why her doctor called it impossible. Because in 11 years of writing prescriptions, he'd never seen the system rebuild itself. He'd never seen the doorbell get fixed. Because nobody ever told him it could be. Okay, let's make this practical. Because I know a lot of you are sitting there right now thinking, all right, I'm convinced, but what do I actually do tomorrow morning? 5 steps, no overwhelm, starting today. Step 1, get fresh okra pods. Look for pods that are firm, bright green, and no longer than about 4 inches. Longer pods get woody and fibrous, and honestly, they taste terrible too. You can find these at any Walmart, Costco, Kroger, or regular grocery store for less than $3 a bag. If your store doesn't carry fresh okra, frozen works. It's flash frozen at peak freshness and retains most of the bioactive compounds. Just avoid canned okra. The processing destroys much of the mucilage. Step 2. Start with 2 pods per day for the first week. Slice them into half-inch rounds. Sauté them in a tablespoon of olive oil over medium heat for about 5 minutes. Add a pinch of turmeric and black pepper. Both enhance absorption and add their own anti-inflammatory benefits. And here's a little trick. If you can't stand the slimy texture, and look, I get it,
Not everyone loves it. Roast them in the oven at 400 degrees for 20 minutes. It crisps them up completely. Still gets you the seeds with the isoquercitrin. Still gets you the fiber. Just less of the mucilage texture. Step 3. By week 2, increase to 4 pods daily. Morning is ideal. It gives the mucilage time to coat your intestinal tract before your largest meals. Some of our viewers eat them as part of breakfast alongside eggs. Others blend 2 pods into a morning smoothie. You barely taste them when they're mixed with berries and yogurt. Step 4. And this is critical. If you're on metformin, separate your okra meal from your medication by at least 2 to 3 hours. Don't let the fiber trap your drug. Morning okra with breakfast, metformin with lunch. Or whatever schedule works for you. But talk to your doctor about the optimal timing. Print out this video's description with the research links. Bring it to your appointment. Give your doctor the studies. Most of them, they just haven't seen this data yet. Step 5. Track your fasting glucose every morning. Write it down. Use a notebook. Use your phone. Whatever works. After 30 days, compare your average to your baseline. The clinical research shows meaningful changes begin appearing between 4 and 8 weeks. Don't expect miracles at day 7. That's not how this works. Expect a trend by day 30. A direction. A slope. That slope is your evidence. I want to take a second here before we wrap up, because I know some of you have been managing this condition for a long time. 10 years, 20 years. Some of you told me in the comments, I thought it was just aging. And that gets me every time, because it's not just aging. A lot of what you've been experiencing, the fatigue, the numbness, the brain fog, the morning numbers that make no sense, those are symptoms of a system that can be supported, that can be improved. You're not too far gone, and you're definitely not too old. 7 mechanisms, 1 vegetable, multiple meta-analyses confirming the direction, and all of it available to you for less than the cost of a cup of coffee. Now, one more thing before you go. If this video covered what happens during the day, what okra does to your meals, your glucose response, your enzyme activity, then the question you should be asking is, what happens at night? Because for most people over 60, the nighttime hours are when the real damage happens. Your liver dumps glucose at 3 a.m. Your cortisol surges before dawn. And you wake up with a fasting number that makes no sense. You did everything right yesterday. You ate well, you walked, you took your medication on time, and still, that morning number is 140, 150, higher than when you went to bed. That gap, that disconnect between what you do and what your meter shows, that's what I address in the Midnight Insulin Trap. It walks you through what changes in your body after 60, why your morning numbers stay stubborn no matter what you eat, and how to build a simple nighttime system, food timing, meal structure, a 7-day reset you can start tonight. The link is right below this video. I think you'll find it answers the questions your doctor doesn't have time to explain. Now, if what you heard today made you stop and think, if even one of these 7 mechanisms was something nobody had ever explained to you before, type, "I deserve the truth" in the comments below. Because you do. You deserve to know how your body works. You deserve to know what your options are. And you deserve a doctor who sits down for 40 minutes and explains it like I just did. And here's one more thing. If you found this helpful, if even one of these mechanisms gave you something you can use starting tomorrow, then I need you to watch what I'm about to tell you. Because I made another video, one that honestly, I almost didn't publish. It's about the 7 worst vegetables that spike blood sugar faster than candy. And the number 1 vegetable on that list? You probably had it for dinner last night. Your doctor calls it healthy. The glycemic data says otherwise. I'll leave a link to that video on your screen right now. My kitchen is my pharmacy. If you believe that, if that resonates with you, put it in the comments. I read every single one. Thank you for staying with me today. This is Senior Health Blog. I'll see you in the next one.